Hi, Melanie. Let's take a look at your newest set of essays about spending money on art. And others think that governments should spend money on other things. Do you agree or disagree? Let's see. Let me see if I can fix this. There we go. Okay. So let's see what you said on this topic. In contemporary society, the authorities improve the standard of living by spending astronomical money on art. Some people argue that governments should invest more in other significant sectors instead of art. From my point of view, art is as important as other public services, and therefore governments should fund for them evenly. Okay, so there was some language here that I really liked, but there was also some language that was not quite accurate. Let me show you what I mean. In contemporary society, the authorities improve the standard of living by spending astronomical sums of money. We don't say astronomical money. We say astronomical figures, astronomical sums of money, usually sums of money. Okay, that would have been better. And then I didn't love how many times you had the word on art, of art, etc. So I thought that you could have had a little better cohesion. Let me show you what I mean. By spending astronomical sums of money on art. Some people argue that governments should invest more in other significant sectors instead. Full stop. You see, here, it's implied that you mean of art. And this is a nice high level way of providing cohesion through ellipsis. Okay, so a lot of IELTS candidates misinterpret what we mean by cohesion a lot, and they think that you need to have a lot of these, like on the one hand, firstly, secondly, furthermore. No, cohesion is created with a lot of other ways, and ellipsis is one of those. Okay, so a lot of significant sectors instead, full stop. From my point of view, art is as important as other public services and should fund for, what is them? What is this referring to? Art and the other public services? That was a little confusing. Let me read it one more time. From my point of view, art is as important as other public services, and therefore governments should fund them equally, would have been better, and not for. You don't need the for after fund, okay? Maybe you could have said budget for them, but not fund for. Let's keep going. On the one hand, let's see. Okay. On the one hand, there are a myriad of public services related significantly to the quality of life. To begin with, government should provide professional and affordable education for the public, since it could help people possess practical skills. No, it could help people acquire practical skills or improve. You help someone improve, you help someone acquire. You don't help someone possess something, okay? So this is about collocation. Okay. Help someone acquire practical skills and have a competitive edge in the job market. For example, governments allocate a budget to the education system to reduce tuition. As a result, people, whatever their socioeconomic backgrounds, could afford to attend schools without to. You attend to a task. You attend to something else, but not when we talk about school. This is a different meaning of attend. So it's just attend plus no preposition. Moreover, governments could assess schools and teachers regularly to make sure they submit. You don't submit knowledge, you transmit knowledge. Okay. Additionally, what does this have to do with anything? How does this have to do with budgeting? How does this have to do with where governments are spending their money? So right now, because it's left unsupported, this sentence feels really off topic. Like it doesn't feel like it belongs anywhere. Okay. So if you wanted to say that this is something that governments should spend money on, then you should have said it, because as it is, it doesn't make sense. Additionally, an excellent health care service is also essential for people's life. Nowadays, life expectancy is longer than before. It means that the number of the seniors is higher, and generally they rely heavily on medical care. In order to boost their health, governments, it's not just one government, governments must set up a huge number of hospitals to offer sufficient and efficient medical service. Let's say. Okay. Now, what I would have liked is if you had gotten to your point sooner. So, for example, additionally, governments should spend money on the healthcare system. Nowadays, etc., etc. Okay, so that would have made more sense because when you said this, I was like, all right, where is she going with this? So when you're going to express a main idea like you did here, make sure it is absolutely clear to us from that first sentence why you are talking about this. Because when I read this, excellent healthcare service is also essential. All right, great. So what does that have to do with anything? Make sure you tie it into the topic, which is where governments should be spending their money instead of art. Okay? Do that straight away rather than kind of meander, because that's what essentially happened. You had like two sentences where I was like, okay, where are you going? And then you finally got to it. But that's a little too long. Get to it straight away. Make it absolutely clear from that first sentence why you are talking about this. All right, let's keep going. Okay. All right. So, on the other hand, there are a plethora of reasons why art is a superb means to improve the standard of living and is worth investing in. Art is something you invest in, they go together. So, you need that preposition. Okay. Firstly, art is an important entertainment. No, we don't say an entertainment. You can say art is an important form of entertainment for people. For instance, governments could build all kinds of public amenities, such as museums and galleries, which, not where, which allow people to unwind in their leisure time. Now, if you want to use where, you have to do it differently. You would have to say where people unwind in their leisure time. Okay? So it's which allow or where people unwind. Okay? Also, the installation of art in public areas could create not a relaxing atmosphere for citizens that help them reduce stress. Okay. Furthermore, the authorities, I don't know what happened here grammatically. The authorities funds, do you mean S apostrophe? I'm confused. For the artistic industries, IES, such as music and theater, improve. I don't know what you're trying to say here. How about this? Furthermore, funds for the artistic industries such as music and theater improve the quality of performances and works that enrich people's lives. It's not one life. Besides, governments pour a budget on art educate. All right, grammar here again. Besides, government spending on art education. There we go. Besides, government spending on art education improves the public's aesthetic awareness. All right, why? Why are you so certain about this? Express it, explain it, develop it. As a result, the public possesses artistic literacy and feels a sense of joy. Sense of joy. I don't understand this. Okay. It looks to me like you had too many ideas here. You had at least 3 different ideas, and I think you should have decided which 2 were your strongest and which 2 were the ones you could develop better, and I think you should have stuck to those. So you said that it's a form of entertainment. For up to me, I probably would have combined entertainment and stress reduction. Okay. And then maybe here, I don't know. I mean, uh, you know what would have been nice if you had talked about how art um also it provides a talking point a lot of times. So a lot of artists make social or political commentaries, or they give us things to talk about, like a topic of conversation. It makes us think about things. So you could have talked about stuff like that too. But I felt like you had too many ideas, um, and the result was they weren't really well developed. I tried to kind of pick the two strongest ones. You can see I'm struggling a little bit, so I think that's something you can try to do. Yeah, but here about like this aesthetic, I thought you could have said more about this. Um, and again, I had some trouble understanding your grammar. Okay. In conclusion, although I realize that art is significant, you want the adjective here, not the verb, not the noun. For people's life, since it is a great way to entertain people, I support that other sectors like education and healthcare are equally important, full stop. Hence, it is better for governments to develop each of them uh, in a balanced way, uh, equally, develop each one. Yeah, to develop each of them equally or fairly or something. So, okay, you have a lot of commentary about this essay, so I don't want to kind of go over it again. Some good stuff, but some things that definitely need work. Okay, I do want to go on to your task one because I know you've expressed some concern about task one. So let's see what you did there. Let's move on to this one here. 6. I don't entirely agree with you that this is simplistic. I think there are plenty of task ones in the actual exam that have about 12 pieces of data. It's not unheard of. So, I mean, yeah, sometimes there are some that have a lot of data, but again, just as often there are ones that don't have a ton at all. And I also think it's important for you to develop the skills, understanding how to edit, how to, compare and so forth. So let's take a look at what you wrote here. This is birth and death rates 1960 to 2010. All right. The bar chart compares the figures for births and deaths, plural, in France during a period of 50 years from 1960. According to statistics of the USA, it's not the USA, it's the United Nations. It says it clearly here up top. All right. Overall, no, we don't talk about the number of birth rate. We talk about just the birth rate. Okay. So overall, the birth rate in France increased over the period shown, while the figure for deaths, plural, fell. It didn't fall just in 2015. Okay, so I don't agree with that. I don't think that's entirely accurate. I think that you'll find that the figures increased and then they declined. So it didn't just fall in 2015. So it would have been more accurate to say, despite some fluctuation, they remained relatively stable. Okay, that would have been okay. Maybe you could have said overall the figure, no, overall the birth rate in France increased over the period shown, while the figure for death peaked and then declined, or something like that would have been okay. All right, so again, in 1965, the French birth rate stood at around 1.25 million, and the quantity maintained the same in the subsequent 10 years. We have to fix that grammar for sure. and vocabulary. Whereas the mortality rate was just 1 million in 1965 and surpassed the birth rate in 1975 at about 1.4 million. Okay, so let's look at the sentence and I'll answer one of your questions in your email. The quantity remained the same 10 years later. That would have been accurate. Whereas the mortality rate was just 1 million in 1965 and surpassed the birth rate. You see, the problem is we don't really say it surpassed something at 1.4. That's why you were kind of confused. Okay, so here's the thing. When you say that something reached, when you have this like action verb, like reached or fell, so we say fell to, it increased to, it climbed to. So a lot of these action verbs have the word, the preposition to. Surpassed doesn't really go with any of these. All right. And that's where you came into some problems. So typically we would say it surpassed the birth rate in 1975, comma, reaching about 1.4 million. That would have been okay. And you can see reaching also has no preposition. How do you learn these? I think a lot of this is from practice and from reading a lot of like sample essays, model essays, but certainly practice for sure as well. Okay. Okay. So let's keep going. The French mortality rate had been rising and peaked at 1.5 million in 1985. By contrast, the figure for death in the same time rose and overtook the quantity of death. No, here you messed up. Birth. So the figure for births in the same time rose and overtook the quantity of death at approximately 1.7 million. So here the at is fine. So let me see if I understand your organization here. You decided to split it in half, which I think is good. I think that was a good way to do this. Let's see. I'm thinking about how you could have maybe done this a little better. When I say better, what I really mean here is cleaner. Let me think about it for a second. If I were going to do this, I would have said in 1965, the death rate was 1 million, while the birth rate was 1.25. The death rate continued to climb gradually, reaching a peak of 1.5 million in 1985. Full stop. In contrast, the birth rate remained stable for the next 10 years before increasing by 1 million in 1985. All right. So that's probably how I would have done it. I think it's a cleaner way of doing it. Okay. Let's see what you said after this. Between 1995 and 2015, French birth and death rates demonstrated an opposite tendency. Okay, it did. Okay. The rate of births, S, jumped to about 2.75 million, but the figure for mortality dropped to around 1.5 million, less than the birth rate at about over 1 million. Stop with no S. In the following decade, the birth rate showed a rise to 3 million, yes, no S, while the mortality rate was only 1/3 of the figure of, this is complicated, was only 1/3 of the birth rate figure. There it is. It's nice and easy. Okay? Was only 1/3 of the birth rate figure. By 1995, 1995? Aren't we at 2015 now? Okay. The birth rate kept rising to approximately 3.25 million, no S. However, the mortality fell marginally to its lowest point, to almost 1 million. Yeah, so obviously you made a mistake there with your numbers. You meant 2015. Be careful with that, because that's the kind of thing that examiners are going to lower your score for when you show inaccurate data. So be careful with it. I mean, you can do it once, but don't do it too many times. So be careful. So you had the right idea here. Like I said, I kind of cleaned this up for you. I thought you could say more in a simpler way. I thought this was okay. You had a general, a good kind of grasp of this. So I felt like this paragraph was stronger. But like I said, be careful with your data. All right. So keep at it. I want to see more work from you. I want to see you apply some of the stuff we're talking about. I think you did a lot better with your prepositions than you thought you did. But again, one good way to kind of review this is by reading a lot of model essays. I think it's very helpful. All right. So I'll be looking forward to your next set of essays. Best of luck.